In the Gospel of Luke, when asked by a lawyer, actually, what his neighbour is, in the context of loving thy neighbour, Jesus proceeds to tell the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, even heathens like us are familiar with the story of the wounded traveller passed over by the priest and the Levite, and finally assisted by the travelling Samaritan. But historically, who were the Samaritans? According to Christian scholars, they were a people who were from a neighbouring country. They had a very similar faith, monotheistic. They believed in Yahweh. But their differences made them reviled by the Jews. Hated and shunned. They were ignored or put down, seen as lesser. And the Jews would avoid them if necessary. So, remind you of anyone? Your neighbours today, who perhaps share a faith but have their differences, maybe speak a different language and come from across a border, and are currently being hunted down, rounded up, and shipped away. So, as crazy as it may sound for someone who doubts the divinity and can criticise some of the character of Jesus Christ, I say that we should take some of his words to heart and actually love our neighbour. But if you're one of the faithful who proclaim that Jesus is your Lord and Saviour, but you're fine with watching your neighbours having their dignity stripped away from them, having their families broken up, being taken, imprisoned, shipped away like pariahs and criminals when they are in fact completely innocent and productive members of this society, then you should give us a call, because you are against your Messiah. And the show is starting now.
Yes, Jamie, what a wonderful, wonderful intro. Thank you so much for that. Christians, you got some splaining to do, and you can do it here on Talk Heathen. Today is February 9th. It is Sunday, and you could be in church, but you're here with us. This is our church. But I am your host, Jimmy Jr., and joining me is the wonderful gentleman that you just heard give an incredible intro, Jamie the Blind Limey. Jamie, my friend, how the heck are you doing?
As well as can be expected. I got some feedback that the last time I co-hosted, I wasn't as jovial or as upbeat as I normally am. And I'm thinking, well, have you seen the world recently? Don't mind me using my incendiary words, because as a military man, you know, you use incendiaries when you want to burn it all down. But
sure.
Perhaps we can be a little bit more light and thank people who are maybe forfeiting their time watching some dudes play hand egg, I think it's called. I don't know. There's a thing happening today later. I don't really know.
Oh, yeah, some kind of game. Don't worry about that game. No. It's not that important. What is important is that two bald guys are here today to hold Christians' feet to the flames, if you will. We've got a lot of themes or a couple of themes that we have kind of made mention of and enticed people to call. First of all, I think that the opening says a lot. You know, Christians, why is it okay for you to stand by while the people who help build your society are treated like second class or even non-citizens? And then also, we had a promo that I did this week where I told people that, you know, if you're living in a situation where you cannot be yourself, where you might be falling away from your religion, where you might not have anybody to turn to, I would love to hear why your beliefs are fracturing and why you feel like you can't be who it is that you really want to be. So this is the place for you to call us as well. But before we go into all that, I do want to remind everybody that Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. We are a live call-in show, and we do have open lines right now for now because our lines are filling up quickly, and I'm so excited. But if you want to make a phone call, you should get in quickly. We can be reached at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. And a way to support us so that we can keep doing what we're doing, because we are volunteers. We do not get paid. We need to make sure that the ACA can carry out its mission. And so super chats is the way that you can do that. So if we get a number of super chats for, well, actually, we haven't really come up with a super chat challenge for this week. But we will get into a super chat challenge for next week, and I want to explain that a little bit. But first, just make sure that you're giving us a super chat. I'll tell you what, Jamie, if you have no objections, I'm going to default back to our super chat challenge. If we get 10 super chats for $10, or is it $5?
I think 5 is the threshold.
5. If we get 10 super chats for $5, I will draw a picture of all of the things that you want us to that you want me to draw. And you know what? I have this wonderful drawing that I did for the last one. So I'm going to pull this up. So I was challenged last time to draw a puppy vampire fighting Donkey Jesus amid a flame background of some sort. So there you can see my puppy with the nunchucks and Donkey Jesus fighting that puppy. And so I think it speaks to the fact that we've got some skill here. We can make this work. So yeah, give us 10 super chats for $5, and at the end of your super chat, tell me what you want me to draw, and I will try and get that in.
Yeah, we do need the donations to help us do what we do. I mean, we all know that the cost of eggs is rising, and the ACA have spared no expense in getting a pair of them today. So thank you very much for your support.
Yeah, but we have callers on the line. So before we'll get to callers, I want to do our Talk Heathen to Me segment. Jamie, it is time. And last week, we asked, complete the sentence. It's a bad idea to follow the Bible's command of blank. And here are our top 3 answers. So number 3 comes from Cade Moore. It's a bad idea to follow the Bible's commandments on keeping the Sabbath day holy. Saturday is easily the most convenient opportunity for the best sinning. Well, yeah. Why? I mean, how do you negotiate that? If you really want to sin, but you've got to follow the Sabbath, boy, you are in a rock and a hard place, my friend. I don't know.
Although it's easier to sin on the Sabbath because all you have to do is any kind of work at all. It's like, oh no, you've done a whoopsie.
Yeah, just ask for forgiveness, right? I mean, that takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You could burn down a village and just accept Jesus later that day, and you're good.
Mate. My bad. Sorry.
Number 2, Colin Matz. It's a bad idea to follow the Bible's command to turn the other cheek. 2 fractured cheekbones is much worse than 1. I like that.
On the face. I thought they meant.
Well, we know what Jamie's doing on the Sabbath. So, number 1 from Chuck Gatos. It's a bad idea to never pick up sticks on the Sabbath. What if you're invited to a Chinese restaurant? Yeah. You know, a lot of people who don't celebrate Christmas go to Chinese restaurants the ones on Christmas, which is pretty cool. We actually did that one year, although we grew up celebrating Christmas, but we said, what the hell, let's do it anyway. You know, there is something comforting in Chinese on Christmas. It's very different. Anyway, I digress. So the prompt for this week, folks, by the way, thank you for those answers. The prompt for this week is, what is God's kryptonite? So make sure that in answering this, you enter into the show comments, not the live chat. But before we get to that, Jamie, do you have an answer? What do you think God's kryptonite is?
Reading the book he's the star of.
Wow. Yeah.
It kills them dead. 99.9% of atheists agree. Read the Bible, kills God dead.
Yeah. That I really like that answer. Yeah, it's amazing that God, you know, that reminds me of like an old adage where God was appearing to everybody until the camera was invented. Yeah. and then he disappeared. You can make him disappear more if you just read the book that he supposedly directed. Oh, yeah. But yeah, that was a great answer. So remember, enter your answer below in the video comments, and next week we will reveal the top 3 answers. And so without further ado, we need to get to the crew cam because these folks make this show possible. Crew, where the heck are you? There you are. Thank you for being there. All right. Yeah, and so they're going to make this thing a success today. We've already got a bunch of calls I want to get to. but keeping with the idea of super chats. So we are starting an epic execution of the super chat challenge. And what we're going to do is issuing a super chat challenge to our friends, Objectively Dan and Secular Rarity. And on next week's show, the hosts, Scott Dickey and Richard Gilliver, will challenge you. So our sister shows are going to be challenged to a super chat challenge. Whoever raises the least money next week of the 3 shows, which of course is Talk Heathen, The Atheist Experience, and Truth Wanted, whoever raises the least money of those shows will be subject to the challenge the following week. Whoever raises the most money will be choosing what that challenge is. And Gauntlet is down. Gauntlet is down. Let's see if we're up to the challenge. Okay. I cannot wait to see what comes of this. And so, yeah, good luck, folks. Make sure you send your money to Talk Heathen, okay? Because we don't want to be losers. In any case, we are going to go to Tommi from Portugal. Tommi from Portugal has an argument for the existence of God, and I cannot wait to take this call. Tommi, what is up? You are on the line with Jimmy and Jamie.
Hello, I hope you're doing well.
Oh.
Hey, Tommi.
Brand new, mate. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got you.
Hello. Yeah, well, I'd just like to say that I've never seen you before, but I watched the little intros each of you did on the last shows you were here. And I must say, I really like the words that Jimmy started his last show, which, if I'm not wrong, are, what would it take for you to change your mind, specifically about something you're convinced of? Would you hear an argument that renders your beliefs all the more unlikely, or would you ignore the facts if they challenge the view that you hold?
Tommi, forgive me for jumping in, but I want to get right to the chase here. So what is the argument that you want to make?
Okay. So firstly, would you agree that our worldview should be the one that best explains what we see, believe, and claim?
Yes, we want to believe the most true things and the least untrue things, yeah.
Okay, so moving right ahead, I'd like to establish a definition, something that we can call a ground, or a sufficiently explanatory ground, is something which we consider to sufficiently explain something. Does that make sense?
We are wandering into Petersonian territory, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure.
It basically,
I'm not sure what
people who claim to be intellectuals and thinkers on these topics, like Jordan Peterson, often use terms like groundings, substrates, like something that is definitionally beneath all things and underpins everything. And I'm always slightly sus about it, but perhaps you've got a fresher take on it.
Yeah, so real quick, Tommi. So, Tommi, I just want to say, look, it says that you have an argument, okay? Instead of asking us all these questions and, maybe you can just get to the argument. Perhaps you need to set up your argument first with some premises, but
yeah, I just want
if you could just state it.
This definition. Okay. Well, first premise, do you believe that there are contingent things? I can explain the definition of contingency if you would like.
Well, I've only given it a certain amount of thought, but as a hard determinist, I believe that everything is contingent on something previous to it, in that it may even be a case that actual libertarian free will doesn't exist, but we can't understand all of the complexities of the universe, so we just kind of have to pretend that it does. So yes, things are contingent on other things.
All right. Would you say that if there is a ground or something that explains a contingent thing, that explanation or the thing that grounds it must be something other than the contingent thing itself? So you can't use the existence of the contingent thing to explain itself. You must point to an exterior explanation.
I can't think of any examples that would go against that model right now. So for the sake of argument, I'll accept it.
Right. Would you agree that, as a matter of basic logic, that whatever grounds or explains something is either contingent or necessary?
That something that that explains something else is itself contingent. Could you give me a clarification on that?
Yeah. So I'm using the term contingent to mean that it's logically possible for that thing to not exist. Something that's necessary is something that it's not logically possible for it to not exist.
Yes, there are certain things that, at least as far as we can see, are necessary for the reality we experience to be the reality we experience.
Okay, so if there's something that's contingent, it requires an explanation that's exterior to itself.
Doesn't necessarily require one.
Necessary.
Doesn't necessarily require one. I can take certain necessary things as an axiom. The laws of logic, for example. I don't believe that I can explain that there is a grounding for the laws of logic. Not to say that there isn't one, but they work in every single circumstance I've ever encountered them, and I've never seen anything counter them. So I am happy to take things like the laws of logic or the fact that I share a reality with other people as axiomatic. I don't need to explain them or need a contingent explanation for them. I can just observe that they are.
Well, the laws of logic would be necessary by the definition that I gave, which is...
Yes, they're necessary, but I don't need something to be contingent for them. That they're not contingent on it. They may or may not be contingent on something, but it doesn't matter to me.
Well, according to this definition, it's not possible for them to be contingent, right?
By the laws of logic. Well, no. I mean, a necessary thing may be contingent on something else, but the thing itself, it would be a chain of necessary contingents, you know. An atom is contingent on a subatomic particle, is on a subatomic particle. Mm-hmm.
You said a chain of necessary contingents.
Yeah, so they are separate entities, but and all of them are necessary for our reality to exist. But they must all exist in that chain for things to be.
Okay, well, for clarity's sake, the way I'm using, because we have to be careful with our words, the way I'm using contingent here is that it's logically possible for that thing to not exist. And the way I'm using the word necessary is it's not logically possible for it to not exist.
Okay.
So it's a true dichotomy, and that's what...
So things are either necessary or they are contingent. They cannot be both in your model.
Yes.
Okay.
Under these definitions, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, but we're still in the weeds here, man. We've got other callers and we've got time, a time limit. So if we could,
we'll agree. We'll agree for the purpose of your argument, so that you can make your argument. Right now, I think Jamie has laid out that we have an agreement.
Okay. Because the grounding of something is either contingent or necessary. Well, if it were necessary, then it would be. Then whatever we're explaining would be sufficiently explained by that necessary thing. But if the ground were something that's also contingent, it may appear that the thing we're trying to explain is sufficiently explained by that contingent thing. But going back to the previous premise, everything that's contingent requires itself an explanation that's exterior to itself. So
why?
It requires another explanation, it should require another explanation. Well, you granted the premise before.
For this, only because I couldn't think of an example. But I could state that you could go ahead and state that the laws of logic are contingent, and I would say that they are necessary. And then it's down to you to prove that they are contingent. And to do that, you would have to prove what they are contingent on, and they would have to give evidence for what they're contingent on.
According to the definition, they must be necessary.
Yeah. Okay.
The definition is about logical possibility.
So give me an example of something that is necessary that I might think is necessary, or you might think is necessary, but I might think is contingent, or the other way around. Where does God come into all this?
That's what I'm waiting for. And just to counter on something, Tommy, hold on. Something you just said. We didn't grant the premise that things need to be explained. We granted the premise that something is either necessary or contingent. Claiming that something is required to be explained is irrelevant to the premises that you've established. At least that's the way I'm tracking it.
I'm sorry. That I didn't mean to imply that you agreed to the idea that everything needs an explanation. Although you agree that our worldview should be the one that explains the best.
I am on board with Jamie when we should seek to find what is true and understand the world by what we understand to be true. I also agree with Jamie in when he says, what does this have to do with the argument for God that you called to make?
Yes, well, the argument is trying to establish the necessary existence of something that is the explanation for all the contingent things of the world, and that thing is God. This is how the argument.
Now that's an Olympic-sized leap you've made there, Chief, because I could just say that the natural, that things like the laws of logic and the speed of light and all of the sort of base physics constants that are the very small building blocks of physics, which becomes chemistry, which becomes biology, which becomes us. They are necessary and need no explanation before them.
Then I would reply that you can't have more than one necessary thing.
Yes, you can. Of course you can.
Or you shouldn't have more.
There can be a set of necessary things. I would absolutely disagree with you. I completely disagree with that premise. Why can't you have multiple necessary things? I mean, even if I granted you that it has to be a God, why not gods? Why not multiple gods?
Because if you assert that there are multiple necessary things, fundamentally, explain all of reality, and that they're completely irreducible to each other, so they're really distinct. There's not one true necessity and below all of that. What you end up is some form of dualism or pluralism, because you have multiple completely different substances.
And they all come together.
Compose reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How? Well, it's so many things. There are certain necessary ingredients to make a cake, and you flour, sugar, eggs, milk, right? We take away any one of those components, and you don't have a cake. But you don't need flour for eggs. You don't need flour for butter. You don't need flour for milk. These are all separate, necessary components that are unconnected. Well, maybe
they're not logically necessary in the way I'm using the word here.
Well, you're just defining your own worldview into existence. Then, I disagree with the definition. So unless you can evidence to me that God does in fact exist and is in fact that substrate, to use the Peterserian vernacular, I'm not going to get on board with you, because I can just say that the natural laws of the universe are themselves necessary, and we are at an impasse.
Yes, but the problem is that if you assert multiple fundamentally necessary things, logically necessary things that are not reducible to each other, you end up with a philosophical view that's called pluralism. And the big problem that all forms of pluralism or just dualisms have is that there is no coherent explanation for how those fundamentally different substances ever interact. You have something like Cartesian dualism, and you have mind and body, and those are the two fundamental substances of reality. There has never been an explanation of how those two are supposed to cohere.
There never has been, but that doesn't say there can't be one. I'm not an expert in philosophical points, but let me ask you this. Let's derail this very slightly. Do you think as a percentage, how many people who potentially would be going to church today to pledge their fealty to a God or to Jesus or to any other religious person, how many of them came to the belief in God because of irreducible, necessary, contingent, philosophical, all this word salad bollocks? How many of them were convinced of what they believe because basically a technical loophole that can't quite be explained in certain worldviews under certain philosophical conditions? Or maybe they have something a bit more fundamental to the way that they approach their faith. So how many people do you think would be convinced by this very technical argument that our God, let alone the God of the Bible, exists?
I wouldn't call this a loophole, but it's a minority, probably a small minority of people who would have arrived at God with this argument.
And even if you can present an argument which may
explain their views,
even if you can present an argument which may, and I'm using the word may, indicate some necessary contingent thing that you call God, then we have to find out what it actually is. And that takes evidence. It has to be extant. And if you go, well, you can't evidence it, it's outside of time or space or whatever, then I'm like, then it's useless.
And on that note, Tommi, how are you defining the term God, by the way? And what is the God that you're claiming to be the necessary thing?
Yeah, so I'm a Christian, and in the tradition of Christian thought, just like every major classical theistic faith, God is understood fundamentally as the necessary thing, the necessary being that things and grounds and is the origin of all reality. And
just like every theistic faith,
to try to derive.
Just like every theistic faith, God is the necessary.
All the major classical theistic traditions.
Okay, so how is it that you end up with the Christian God and not one of those other gods that are part of these major theistic traditions? And how is it that you know that your God is the one that is necessary for all of these contingent things that took place? That would probably explain how you were able to make this leap to God being the prime mover in this case. How did you land there? And how do you know that your God is the one? How do you know it's not one of the other gods?
Yeah, well, I believe all of these great faiths are trying to understand the same fundamental reality. They're just different traditions of thought that end up developing, different views of what this reality must be.
So let me give you a premise, Tommi. Let me give you a premise then. Let's say I accept your argument for a fundamental, contingent, single necessary thing that is God. Premise one, that thing exists. Premise two, you believe that it is the Christian God that represents that is the Christian God, right? And if I believe that, then I must believe it's Christian God. Therefore, if I believe that there is a necessary single contingent force, then I mustn't eat shellfish or do butt stuff, because it logically follows that it's your God. And he had some very strong opinions on those things. How does that follow? How do you get from the Masoretic laws and shit like that, from basically we can't quite explain the reasons for base things like logic and fundamental physics forces? How do you get from there to, stone the unruly child? Like, that's a leap of post-Olympic superhuman proportions, and you're asking us to get on that train with you.
I'm not. I don't think it follows.
Then, so
you're a Christian. You believe in the Christian God. How does it not follow?
I'm not a biblical fundamentalist.
Well, I think that might spear us off into a conversation about what parts of the Bible should we believe or not. But you got anything else there? I've bogarted this call. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No, you did a wonderful job. Well suited to take this call. I just want to, I want to kind of summarize this. So, things are either contingent or they're necessary. Okay. The first prime mover in this argument that is God, is the Christian God, according to Tommi. I'm not sure how we got from things existing based on this prime mover and that prime mover being the Christian God. It's just a lot of leaps and bounds that we have not really been able to successfully navigate by providing evidence. I don't think that it's a successful argument for God that you've provided. I think that it's a lot of conjecture. I don't even think that God is really necessary for the universe. I mean, let's just say God is there and the universe is also there. How do we know that God was necessary for the contingent universe to take place? I mean, there are a lot of deists or a lot of people who think that God is uninterested in interfering. How would we navigate around that? And so there's no real bridge between those two those two theories there. So if you will, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, just one last thing. I will admit that my lack of training and knowledge in formal philosophical concepts like dualism may have hampered my understanding of the conversation a little bit. What you want to do is call in when our wonderful producer and co-host Richard Gilliver's on. I believe he's in next week. So absolutely call us back, Tommi. It was a fascinating conversation. And I know very much would like to thank you for being civil and calm with us. But yeah, call us back. Absolutely. Yeah,
Tommi, again, Richard will be on next week. Looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, I can't say that I'm well suited to handle the deeply philosophical arguments either. But when you start talking about the other major theological themes, I think I'm a little bit more suited to talk about that. And, when you have Christianity coming out of other religions that have all simultaneously existed, the Babylonians or the Assyrians or the Canaanites and the various sects that exist in there, it gets very muddy to say, well, mine is the one that makes sense, even though all of these other ones were there. So I think, like Jamie so aptly stated, that's another conversation I think that we just don't have time for. But maybe you could put that on the back burner and call us back, and we can have that conversation as well. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for calling. Yeah, good stuff. Jamie, good stuff. Thank you very much for taking that and handling that. I wasn't convinced. I just wasn't convinced. I never am convinced when it comes to the contingency argument. The problem that the people have making that argument is the huge leap to the God that they believe in, or into any God in general. Yeah. And that's where I get.
I'm still. That's where I'm. Why does it have to be one contingent thing? Why can't it be a set of necessary things? Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Right. In any case, that was a wonderful way to start the show. We took our first call. I want to get back to calls, but we have some exciting news, and I have a message from Sophia. Sophia, take it away.
Calling all free thinkers. We are excited to announce that the ACA is launching its first ever fundraising campaign, Amplify ACA, in partnership with Amplify Austin. This is your chance to expand our impact by making your voices heard and supporting the shows that you love.
We invite you to join us on March 5th starting at 6 p.m. We're going to be doing a 24-hour fundraising event and camp out live at the Free Thought Library in Austin, Texas. We've got a great show in the works, a whole variety hour with our hosts doing different things, not just taking calls like you're used to, but we're going to have the fun facts and playing some games and lots of different activities. So be sure to join us from that. Again, it's going to be really exciting, and we're looking forward to having as many people involved as we possibly can.
Donating is easy on amplifyatx.org. Just search the word atheist and click the donate button. Follow us on our socials for more information.
And this is important. We want to be able to amplify the voices of reason and compassion worldwide. So we ask you, please, donate on Amplify Austin Day to make a real difference. Ooh,
awesome.
Who was that last guy in the promo? He sounded sexy and/or cool.
See, I was going to say the opposite and be slightly insulting, but I like what you did there.
Interject.
But that wouldn't have been true if I said it, of course. Yours was, comports with reality.
It was reality.
But I want to say thank you, Ben. Thank you, Sophie. And Sophia, and thank you, Jamie. This will be our first ever major fundraising campaign, and we need your help to make it a success. So mark your calendars for March 5th and 6th for our fundraising kickoff party and our 24-hour live stream. Come on down to the Free Thought Library in Austin and join us online via the Atheist Experience channel. Make a plan to donate, and let's amplify the ACA together. And go ahead, Jamie.
I'll be there.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I wish I could make it. I will be there remotely, but I will not be there in presence. But speaking of donations, Truth666 sent us a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. No message. Remember, this is a drawing super chat challenge, so I can't draw nothing unless I just hold up a blank piece of paper and say, "Hey, I made God."
Yep.
That might be what Truth 666 is leaning toward there.
And we did get one earlier as well. $1.99 from Mrs. Blasphemous. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you. Crew.
Yeah.
That was specifically for the crew. So that's $2 for the crew.
Nice. Yeah, appreciate that. And we are accepting super chats, and we will read them live on air, most likely. If it's something we can do or say on air. But we will read anything that you've written, almost, again, assuming they are YouTube appropriate. So make sure you get your super chat in. And then we also want you to stay tuned into what is going on in our community. We have the atheistcommunity.org website, www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. Also, when you navigate to that website, you can get some merch like I've got here. Can we see that? Can you see that nice? Almost Talk Heathen t-shirt I was wearing. They cut off of me, but that's fine. There's enough merch here on the screen for you to take a look at. So go get your merch at tiny.cc/merch ACA. And we want to hear from you folks. So let us know what you liked about the show, what you thought was effective, and more importantly, how we could do better. Always open to feedback. Email us at tv@atheist-community.org and let us know. So with that being said, we are going to move to another call. And since I did make a promo telling people to call in and talk about why they can't fit into the society, the family, the community that they are a part of, I am going to go to Kenny in Tennessee, who's having difficulty fitting into the society that they're in, or he is in, due to religious differences. So Kenny, what's up, man? You are on with Jimmy and Jamie.
Hey, Jimmy and Jamie.
Hey.
I'm very glad to be talking to you. I've been watching your show along with... Sorry?
I said, we are glad to have you calling. What's going on?
I heard that promo that you just talked about, Jimmy, online maybe, and I am a fish out of water in this city I live in Tennessee, but in a way that's very different from most of your callers. In fact, I've never heard a caller that has my point of view. So strap in, it's going to be weird. I am
okay.
I'm definitely not a believer in any religion at all. With the exception of Buddhism. Buddhism is practical rather than worshiping Buddha or someone else. Buddhism is a way of living life that is different from the recommendations of any other religion. And it's the only form of religion. I hate calling it a religion, but it's the only form that I find semi-acceptable. I have to say semi because I haven't read much Buddhist literature. I just know the basic ideas, and they make a lot more sense than any other quote-unquote religion I've ever been exposed to. And that means I'm not a Christian. I'm a recovering Methodist. I was indoctrinated from age 0 to 21 when I got out of the house and went to graduate school. And I have been deconstructing ever since I was 21 years old. Only in the last 10 years have I would say, fully deconstructed. I'm just holding that one Buddhist thing as a something to consider in detail later on. I don't know whether there is this thing called God, which is a word I despise, but I do know that I don't believe the Bible at all, with the exception of some of the claimed quotes from Jesus. Some of them are very wise, and then he says other stuff that's really hard to believe. So when you boil the Bible down to what I think is true in it, you'll find scattered truisms in the Old Testament, and you'll find pretty fake stories about Jesus in the New Testament. In other words, I think it's mythology. I think all religions are just a form of mythology. And we have to come to terms with that. You can't live your life depending on something that turns out to be a myth. At least I can't do that.
All right.
So I have been deconstructing.
Okay, I want to get to the point of your call, but so real quick, what is it that makes it so difficult? So I understand you came out of Methodism, right, or Methodist Christianity, and then you kind of found your niche in Buddhism. But what is it about your unique? Not really. Well, you're holding on to Buddhism, right? Like you said that.
Well, I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it aside for the moment.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not going to rule on Buddhism right now because I don't know enough about it.
All right. So what is it that...
It's the only so-called religion that makes any sense.
But what is it about your experience right now that caused you to call in response to the promo? Like you're having a hard time fitting into your society or your family. What's the experience about there?
Yeah. Well, as I've described my beliefs partially, I've described something that no theist or Christian would ever accept. And I live in a city, the city I was born in. I left at age 21 and found myself back here at age 55 because the world had destroyed me.
Okay.
I hate this world. I hate religion. I hate what people do to each other in the name of religion. And I hate the bullshit beliefs they pull out of it.
All right. Well,
I'm surrounded by people who are the opposite. I can't make friends here because I don't want to know these people.
I get it. I think a lot of us go through that. And you know what, Kenny, I know for a fact that you are not following a unique experience, if you will, because a lot of people get out of their Christian upbringing or their religious upbringing altogether, and they find something else to hinge themselves onto because they are so used to adhering to a dogma. And it's very common for people to come out of Christianity and find Buddhism or find Hinduism because it's an Eastern religion. It's different. It takes them away from the thing that they have grown up with, that they had forced upon them, but they no longer agree with. And so it's logical for many people to say, well, here's this other thing that makes sense. It's a way for me to live my life with some kind of structure, some kind of principles, some core values, and it doesn't cause me to adhere to a violent, fictional character, right? Which is what most of us experience when we come out of religion. I grew up in the Lutheran faith. We were cultural Christians, and we went to church on Sundays, and that was kind of it. I mean, there was nothing else happening. But when I was in those Sunday school classes, I was learning that Jews go to hell, that when an abortion clinic is shot up or blown up, it's probably the work of God. Homosexuals go to hell, you name it. My parents didn't really know what I was being taught, and I grew up and found out, like, hey man, I'm full of so much more love. Don't ask some of the people who make comments about me in some of the shows because they kind of don't feel like I'm very loving sometimes. No, just kidding. I appreciate the viewership and the comments, but anyway, I'm full of so much more love. I don't align with those things. I bet you that there are more networks of people around you that feel the way that you do that you're not really sure of, and I would encourage you to try and find those.
Of them.
Pardon me?
I'm not aware of any such groups. Can you direct me?
So I'm pretty sure that host and friend of the show, Secularity, is a Tennessee native himself and runs events for around not just theism and atheism, but around philosophy as well. So you might want to look up, secular rarity, Tennessee events. I don't know how my geography of the United States is sketchy at best, so I don't know exactly how far away you'd be, and I don't know what city you're in and what.
That's true for Americans too.
He's in. It's just big. It's just really big. But what I would say is that it is completely understandable to have this kind of fury, because one of the biggest things about being brought up religious, and I'm thankfully was spared most of it, but I've seen it, is that you have been lied to. Maybe not on purpose. Maybe some people were just spreading lies to you out of what they thought was the goodness of their hearts to teach you what they thought were good lessons. And treating things like the Bible and Buddhism, things as more of as a philosophy and mysticism, like mythicism, with parables and fables you can take lessons from. I think that's a very healthy way to approach the book. Like I say, my startup this episode was let's follow the word of Jesus and love our neighbour. You don't have to believe in his divinity to think that those words have merit. And so I would say, try and find community, maybe not in person in your actual virtual in your surroundings, but we've got a Discord, the ACA, you can join that. You might see me on there. There's plenty of others as well. You can definitely find your tribe in this sort of interconnected world that we have. But maybe you want to start, if you want to actually do something in person, start by looking at what SR does in Tennessee.
That makes sense. I've seen Secular Rarity several times.
And I've just got a note.
The way he puts things together.
Sorry, I just got a note in from our crew. You might want to try Nashville Nuns and Clarksville Atheists as a starting point as well. There's two groups there.
Yeah. And that's nuns, Nones, not it's not like a funny play on words. It's that's
No, I know.
So meetup.com. I don't know if you've ever been on there. Might have some groups that you want to get in. I'm in New York, and I know that New York has several New York City atheists, Westchester County, Long Island, all over the tri-state area. There are atheist meetup groups where people get together and they meet in person and virtually. I guarantee you that Nashville will have that. In fact, Jamie just read you two groups that you can check out. But definitely stay tuned into our shows, especially the Atheist Experience, if you want to talk to or get some tips from Secular Rarity. Also, somebody else, one of our hosts who is a regular, I don't know if you're familiar with our show, The Nonprofits, but is also a host on Truth Wanted, is Kelly Laughlin. And when Kelly came out of Christianity, Kelly took a similar venture that you did by going to Hinduism and then Buddhism and then finally calling himself an atheist. Excuse me. So, if your struggle is not having a society that you can, that will welcome you, I think that just a little bit of digging will yield some really good results.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about Buddhism itself, next week, Richard is hosting and he's going to have a Buddhist call in, and they're going to discuss it. And Richard, he lives and breathes Buddhism. The man has forgotten more about that religious philosophy than most of us will ever know. So he's kind of our resident expert.
Oh, I see. Well, those are all good suggestions.
Yeah. Hey,
I can
Kenny,
take it down to the individual level, though. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to encourage you, man, I know that it's easy to look to our past and look at the world around us and be angry. It's, we're all angry in some way, but my suggestion would be maybe approach things a little bit more delicately. If you're looking to make community, approaching people with hate, like you were saying before, like you hate this world. I feel for you, man. Like I hope that you find some way to enjoy the short life that we have, for however much you have left on this earth. I don't
have much left.
Well, I hope that you find a way to, enjoy the rest of it, to make the best of it, and to find some people that you can call your tribe, like Jamie and I have done.
Yeah.
Because Jamie's my tribe, and we're hundreds of miles away from each other. We see each other once a year.
Yeah.
But he's still my brethren. You know what I mean? And so that could be an experience that you have as well. But go ahead.
Here's the thing about those negative emotions, about the fury and the hatred. They're actually close cousins to similar emotions that are far more constructive. Passion, righteous indignation, a will to change, that which is around you. So if you can't tamp down on that fury, change it into righteous indignation, point it, focus it, hone it, use it, find a cause, fight for the cause. Try and make the world a little bit of a better place, because whether you've got 5 years, 15 years, 5 days left on this planet, you can make the world a better place by tiny degrees. All it takes is a kind word to a stranger. All it takes is standing up to a bully. All it takes is having a set of principles, putting your line in the sand and saying, this far, no further. And if you live in that way, you can make every day at least somewhat productive, at least somewhat worthy of the next breath you take, the next step you take, the next meal you eat. Please don't give up on yourself, man. And thank you very much for calling in.
Well, Kenny had one thing. Nice. Kenny had one thing he wanted to add, and I'm sorry we cut you off. I think we're just super enthusiastic about helping you find the things you need. But you had something you wanted to say.
Oh, you are, yes. That was so far back that I'm not sure I could pull it up.
Yeah, you said breaking it down to the individual level.
Oh, yeah. Like my next door neighbor, who's now crippled because he's had work accidents. He's no longer a threat, but he thinks he's a Christian, and he's one of the worst people on the planet.
Well, that's characteristic.
With the political turmoil that we're headed for, he's dedicated totally to Trump, and I just don't want to be anywhere near him, but he's right next door to me. And this is the kind of real life considerations. When you live in the South, but your heart is not in it, then you have a constant battle trying to protect your own beliefs from things you've already shown yourself are bullshit. And people around me all believe those bullshit things.
I'll liken this to some training that we get in the military, which is it comes from the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct are principles that help you resist when you're in tough times or when you're in captivity. And the main theme of that is small victories and resist wherever possible. So, if I'm being held captive, if I could sneak, if I'm not supposed to have any paraphernalia, but I can successfully sneak a toothpick into my barracks, man, I have just resisted. I've had a small victory, right? So I'm not asking you to walk into the state capitol and expect them to change their minds based on the way that you feel. But I am expecting you to stay in line with your principles. Where an opportunity presents for you to stand your ground and maintain your dignity, then do that. But don't drive yourself crazy trying to change everybody around you. It's
no,
especially where you're in. So we are going to get to some other calls, Kenny. I really appreciate you tuning in. I want to read a super chat that came from our good friend Nero. She sends $5. Nero says, Kenny, I am in Tennessee as well, and if you find me on Discord, I am the lone atheist around my town. I offer to build a bridge, draw a screaming sun. J&J. Oh, she's talking to me. Draw a screaming sun. That's for the super chat challenge. Don't worry about that, Kenny. That's for me.
Okay.
But anyway, so if you're not familiar with Discord, I advise you to go search Google and find Discord and set yourself up with an account, and then find the atheist community of Austin, and there's a network for you there. Okay.
Yep. Tiny.cc / ACD Discord, I believe.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Tiny.cc / ACD Discord, I believe, is the link. And so once you've got yourself a Discord profile, hit there. You'll find us there. You'll find Nero there. And I'm hearing a lot of frustration in your voice. If you can't find a solution, finding catharsis is a good one. If you can't solve a problem, finding a bunch of people who are happy to listen to you complain about it, definitely useful. And we are definitely down for that.
That's why I called.
All right. Kenny, thank you so much.
Great points.
Thank you so much for your call. Chin up, brother, and keep going. So don't give up. And we look forward to hearing about your progress. So that was, that was a good call. That was unfortunate. There's so much frustration, but that's not uncommon in these circles, especially people with those experiences. Jamie, yes. Are you up for the top 5 patrons?
Yes, let's do that.
All right.
Okay. Oh, am I going to be reading them out? I think they're going to be just posted. While I'm waiting for that, we actually had another super chat.
We have a few super chats. Yeah. I do not appreciate the last one I got, but I'm gonna read it. Let me just do the so I'll do the super chats. Do you have or you want to take care of the super chats and I'll do the top 5?
No, I've got the top 5. They're just been
okay.
Up. Sorry for the confusion. We are a professional organisation. Top 5 patrons. First up, Oops All Singularity. What a wonderful name. Secondly, Dingleberry Jackson. Also an excellent name. Always has been. Cavetti Helvetti feels like someone who's fighting against the fonts. Anyway, next is Brian Zupka, a newer name to the list, and J.A. Carlton. Thank you very much. And we have an honourable mention of Martin Diemers. So yes, thank you everyone for contributing. We literally couldn't do what we do without you. And if you want to get involved, what's the link to get to the Patreon?
The link is tiny.cc/PatreonTH. And there we have all of our shows posted. We've got some additional content only for Patreon patrons. And that is, we do an after show every week and we have been recording them. And so we post those conversations. It's a little bit more informal, and it's a lot of fun that when the hosts get to kind of interact with our viewers who tune in on Discord for the after show. So I suggest everybody to get on Patreon, sign up, and get on Discord and join us for the after show. And on that note, again, we've started recording the after show. So just beware that you will be in the recording, but also available to hear yourself on Patreon. Yeah. When it comes to super chats, Miranda Rensberger asked me to draw a word salad. I'll try. And she sends $10. Space Barbarian, $10. All hail the Dreadlord Reality. Okay. I don't know. Is that a joke? And then Nero, I read hers. Thank you so much. She sends $5. Some Kind of Dickie sends $10. Jimmy, draw Secular Rarity, Cross Examiner, and Objectively Dan, all waving the white flag after losing next week's Super Chat challenge. Hashtag sneak peek. So I will try to draw that, but we got to get the right amount of donations here. We got to get the right amount of Super Chats. Without any further ado, we are going to jump to another call, and we're going to take Hipkat from Tennessee. Hipkat thinks there is misogyny in religion and wants to know, why is it normal? Let's talk to Hipkat. You are on the line with Jimmy and Jamie. How's it going? Hi, Hipkat.
Hello?
Hey.
Yes, I dropped my phone. Hello?
Hey, thanks for joining us today. What's on your mind?
Yes. Lately, I've been really learning more about misogyny. And I mean, I've known about it for a long time. I just thought I'd dive into it. And I want to know why there is so much misogyny in all the religions, or most of them. And what is that about? Is that a natural thing? Because it's even hateful.
I don't have
women.
So I don't have a whole lot of data on this, if you will. I did do my undergraduate. Yeah. I did my not my undergraduate. I did my master's thesis on the way that women contribute to economic development in certain countries, and we found that the less amount of women, it really doesn't matter what we've found. The conclusion was that the smaller the female population in the workforce, the less economically developed the country was, right? So, and that was consistent with more orthodox countries. the thing that strikes me when it comes to religion and misogyny, however, is that the dominance of males over women creates more stability for religious institutions, okay? Because it keeps people in a family dynamic, if you will, and it concentrates the wealth of that family into the religious institution that family has adhered to. And so that would be my hypothesis on that. I think that if you had people, let's say men and women, or males and females, equally, well, men and women, equally pursuing professional and personal goals, that would make them less likely to start a family and less likely to donate their family income to a religious organization. And so when it comes to religion, exercising this belief that females belong in the kitchen, females are subservient to men, it kind of creates a sustainable family dynamic that the church or that the religious institution can become profitable from. And so I think in my research and in what I've come to learn about misogyny in general, I think that is the basis, although it is not a sweeping explanation for every single thing. There is certainly, every single situation. I think it's certainly much more nuanced than that, depending on what region of the world you come from. But generally speaking, you know, the subjugation of women is consistent with religion, and I think religion benefits from a family dynamic. And so that's what I have to say on that. To begin this call, Jamie, anything to add there?
Well, it's a chicken and egg situation, which came first,
sure.
Misogyny or the religion, and I think misogyny came first.
Well, what I wanted to know was, I just wanted to know why the history of it from way back would be not just, you know, it would be hateful. Women can't, you know, it'd be really limiting to women. I just didn't understand the psychology of that way back when, and I understand what you were saying, but that's the thing. I'm just wondering, was it natural for men to be awful? Or I don't have friends like that, but, you know, in the tradition of religions from way back. And that's what I was wondering about. But anyway, please continue.
Well, I'm not an anthropologist. You really would want to talk to someone who has a professional knowledge. Is like, because the base question you're asking is, why does misogyny exist and why is it so pernicious? Because I believe that it came first and becomes prevalent in religion because, like many things, it is a method of control. Men have been realized they had the opportunistic advantage of generally higher physical strength, and the fact that when a woman is made pregnant, she is physically vulnerable and is dependent on other people for survival, and therefore becomes less of a person and more of an object in certain men's minds. And when you start that cycle of you're mine, you're my breeding thing, and I will dominate you, then you are a thing and I must protect you. I must keep you away from the other things that are going to try and steal you from me and keep you in a little glass case. But of course you're a thing, so you shouldn't chat back. You should do what you're told. You're not a person, you're a thing. And then it's very easy to, once you start dehumanizing people, to throw hatred on top of them as well. Like, you're just a thing. Why do you complain when I do these things to you? It is for the greater good. You know, your place is to be the vessel for my seed, etc. And religion just sees that and goes, man, that's a handy tactic to keep people in line and to grow our numbers. Let's use that, shall we? And it's just a natural progression from this predation that probably stems from some evolutionary need to protect our bloodlines and produce the species. And much like any things like evolutionary psychology might teach us, these are archaic and in modern day largely obsolete concepts that should be left behind, the same way that we left behind, you know, hunter-gatherer organizations or large-scale war. So yeah, I don't want to make any excuses for my gender's predation on women over the years, because it's not an excuse. There may be quote unquote reasons for it, but it ain't good.
I imagine sometimes, in some cases, women have not been that helpful and as well, and followed it and went, oh yes, the the men know, and we have to follow them and, convince that way.
Well, that's a product of being told that your entire life as a little girl, being told so, and that's culturally pretty I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but it's almost ubiquitous in most cultures, especially the more orthodox the culture is. And, to Jamie's point, the chicken or the egg point, there are a lot of people who believe that the roles of male dominance started in male-led hunting groups. And as religion developed, it kind of just took that relationship and capitalized on it. And so, I mean, there's another explanation. There are some experts that think that. I'm no expert, but in any case, when you're brainwashed, I mean, it's not just women in that case. There are people that are brainwashed their entire lives to believe certain things. It just so happens that all of them, or everybody that's subjugated by a certain dogma, often is indoctrinated with the idea that women have their role. That's what they like to say now. Women are still equal. They just have a different role. But in most cases, the women are not expected to perform to the same level as the man. And yeah, I would say that I don't know where you were going with that. As far as I know, that some women haven't helped. It almost sounds like you're.
I know a few. I know. Oh, continue, please.
No, please say your thought.
Oh, I have a couple of friends in Florida, and I never discuss politics with them because I'm so different. And I like the common ground of being friends on other, things. But they're Trump supporters, a few of them, and they love these men who are misogynists. I think there was a book written, Why Men Hate Women and the Women That Love Them. Because it fits in that, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I mean. Those particular women, I don't mean women, all women or women in general, just some of those women. I go, well, they're not helping, and, but I know there are matriarchal cultures, I guess, on necessity, because there's way more women than men, where the women will be in charge. I don't know how that relates to their religion, but that's where I was going with some women don't help, I imagine. But that's not a general statement for all women. Just I know a few who will support that.
I would say that they are as much.
Again.
I would say they're as much victims of this system as anyone else, and it's the same with the kinds of people who espouse other horrible isms due to their religious beliefs. Like, they're a victim too. They've been brainwashed into this. They weren't born that way. So it behooves those of us that go by evidence and by actual sort of fact rather than dogma and tradition to try and break these chains, and they're very, very difficult to break. I mean, these are ingrained things from before any of the major religions came out. But as I would say, there may be natural, quote unquote, reasons for it. But before anyone comes out and starts saying, well, if it's natural, it should happen, I'm saying, yeah, but so is cancer, and we fight that. So it doesn't matter if it's natural or not.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's yes, exactly. That's a great point. But yeah, I've just been kind of obsessing on the nature of this. And again, you said I should talk to someone who's more of anthropology background, and I hope to come across someone like that. I would love to discuss this with someone like that on Talk Heathen, but I don't know who would have that background or which show.
Well, I believe there's a creator out there who goes by, I think the name's Erica, goes by Guts Gibbon. I think she might be an evolutionary anthropologist, but she might actually be an evolutionary biologist like Forrest Valkai. I'm not exactly sure. But these are the kinds of circles that you want to try and run in to try and get the actual real answer as to why does misogyny exist. As a base plate.
Right.
And then,
exactly.
And then, as I would say, once you've got a handle on that, then you'll understand why, as a system of control and subjugation, it's really useful for religions to incorporate.
Oh, that's, the psychology behind it. And I just kept wondering, is it a natural thing? Is it,
I don't think it's natural. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Well,
I don't think it's natural as much as it's circumstantial. Like Jamie said,
right.
You have males that took advantage of the fact that they were physically stronger, and then women who were kind of rendered to child rearing because of their natural capability, their natural property of giving birth and providing milk, right? And so that, pardon me?
Yeah. Survival of the species. We have to do it this way if we're going to survive, and that it makes sense. Yeah.
That dynamic doesn't mean that women even in our earliest stages of humanity, of our earliest stages of the species, were somehow unequal when it came to capability. We know that women hunted. We know that women participated in ritualistic roles. That there were cultures that were more matriarchal, but with the rise of cities and it's such a dichotomy, because with the rise of cities and like the codification of religion that came, they were able to kind of harp on this system where men were mostly in charge, right? But we go into the present day and we know that dynamic that existed for so long is not the way that it has to be. It actually, we benefit when women are participating in society more than when women are not participating in society. And so that's why I encourage people to challenge these so-called axioms that we're taught by religion, because they are challengeable, they are questionable, and there are other explanations. There are other explanations and other ways that society can be structured than the more archaic, more structural kind of dynamics of early human antiquity.
Yeah,
we've kind of talked a lot. We've talked a lot.
Growing more obsolete.
I think so, and I think the especially in this country, the fight between people who see the way things ought to be versus the people that see the way see things the way that they quote unquote should be, is taking into consideration how each views the role of women, and to a kind of wider perspective, the role of minorities and other groups that have been subjugated by white male Christian dominance. So that's what we see at play in our own society now. The challenging not only of people who think gender roles are mythical, or gender roles should be a certain way, when in fact there isn't a thing of gender roles. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a little bit because, not gonna lie, I'm focusing on making this. I'm making this drawing while I'm talking to you. So I'm like doing two things at once. But yeah,
I have a drawing I would love for you to make. It's of a raptor Jesus.
Raptor Jesus? I can do that, but we're going to need a super chat. I'm sorry. I got to hold you to the standard.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. Well, this has been really good. Yeah. I just looking things from a very analytical point of view, and just trying to find the only thing that bothers me. Yeah, there's a lot of it, but just how come they would treat her so badly rather than put her up on a pedestal a little bit, going, oh my God, I gave you my seed and you're creating, you can carry this baby and feed the baby, and, I can donate the sperm. And why is it, just the history of the hatefulness of it, the anger, the that part of it too. So that's what I'm really trying to find out.
I think this is a bigger topic than we can cover in this one call. Do feel free to call back in and do look into, as I say, people who have training in anthropology in terms of their output. I'm a failed computer scientist, come social worker, and as I say, I think Jimmy might be a little bit better equipped, but. But thank you for your.
You give me something to think about. So, okay. This was great. I can let you go then. That feels good.
Thank you so much for your call. We love the opportunity to talk about the hypocrisy of religion, the atrocities of religion, and just kind of get people to think about, well, why do I believe this thing? Especially women. It really is mind-boggling that women would adhere to something that says that they are not good enough.
Yeah, and it looks like we had a super chat from someone who has a similar worry. Like, this is obviously quite a big topic, and it is very obvious when you think about it. But we had one in from a Laren Misha Sedai for $10. Thank you. Also echoing the caller's message of why is there so much misogyny in religions? Also, why are most religions controlled by men? I just don't understand what the connection is. So, yeah, another person out there saying, what's the deal with men, man?
Yeah, and we got another super chat from Eli Slack, who really wants to challenge me today. So Eli is supporting Haptic, who just called, and gave us $10 saying, this is for Raptor Jesus. So looks like Raptor Jesus is getting added. Thank you, Eli, for that. And Mrs. Blasphemous sends $4.99, Raptor Jesus, ! People really want to see Raptor Jesus, and I don't blame them. It looks like our drawing is really taking hold. We have another caller. So somebody who's responding to the prompt, Michael in Ohio. Michael, I'll just let you say what you want to say. So you are on with Jimmy and Jamie. What's going on?
Hello. Again, what I said in the to the call screener, I belong to a 12-step support group, and I've been clean for a really long time, 16 years, but I've been involved with 12-step groups for 40 years. And what I come to find out is that deconstructing and not relying on the supernatural is how I was able to finally stay clean. Now, that is completely counter to what 12-step groups usually talk about. And at times I feel really isolated and feel the need to talk, about how, I just really believe that it's the community of recovering people that actually is the strongest thing as far as getting and helping somebody get clean and stay clean. And so I'd love to hear you guys talk about it.
Well,
chance to respond later on.
Well, first of all, congratulations on getting clean. That is not easy. And while it's a tricky one, because if those kinds of 12-step programs, because they are more ubiquitous, are the only ones that are available to someone, and they can find some help in it, even though, part of it is appealing to a higher power and abrogating your own, having the whole thing of you're constantly being judged, you're constantly being watched kind of thing, so you better, stick to it. If that helps someone, I can academically come at it. But if it honestly saves a life or gets someone in a good stead, then that's fine. The problem I have with it is, of course, that I believe that there are secular ways around it, and that it's also robbing a person of the credit that they should be getting for the effort they're putting in to get themselves clean. It was not a God, it was you, all you in the end. You're the only person who can truly break a habit. And the one that really gets me is that it rolls into a nasty pattern I've seen of how, especially in the modern day, religions get new followers because they catch you when you're at your most vulnerable and give you God as the solution. So many younger people calling into the show who said, I was an atheist and now I'm a Christian. The stories are almost always the same. I was living a life of sin. I was doing drugs. I was doing this. I was doing that. And then I found Jesus. And it's like you found something that helped you, but you were predated on. You were suckered in by these people who want your attention and your wealth and your time and your belief, and they will offer you this nepenthe, this panacea, this magic feather, basically, so long as you keep believing. And we, as humanists, are our hands are slightly tied. We're like, well, I don't want to take that away from people if it's keeping them happy and alive. But we would love to be able to have a conversation with them where it's like, but maybe you can find a better, more rational solution to these issues. But it's a tough balance to strike, basically.
Michael, you have a response?
It is a tough balance to strike. Yes, it is a tough balance to strike. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to attend meetings, is because I like to be there for the new people. And hey, I just want to put this out there to you, friends, that I've got 16 years clean and I haven't asked for any supernatural intervention whatsoever. I just rely on, my recovery community and the people that I know are going to support me and that have some background in staying clean for any period of time, and just try to reach out in a way that, so there isn't the predation that goes on.
Yeah. And that's very commendable, like leading by example and being there for people. It's kind of what this organization's here for. It's like there is another way. You can find community, you can find support, you can find fulfillment outside of a church. And with you, again, fantastically commendable. You can find a cure for the addiction. You can find a way out of that cycle without having to appeal to a supernatural power. Look at me, I did it, and I'm still doing it, like living the life. So yeah, props to you, man. I mean, do you have any other things that you would like to sort of consider, or you got anything on this, Jimmy?
I'd like to add something.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I would like to add that for anybody that is looking for help but is a skeptic or a non-believer, atheist, whatever, that there are secular communities within the bigger 12-step recovery groups, and it may take some looking, but they are there.
Yeah, and if you know any of them in specific, you can always send an email to TV at atheist-community.org and let us know about them, or you can come onto the Discord and sort of post about them and sort of spread the word. Because if they're legitimate and non-profit, then we'd like to know about them.
Yeah, and if I may, I understand the hesitance, the reluctance to want to get help from an organization that may be rooted in some kind of faith. And I get it. But what I don't want people to do, and I think what you have demonstrated a good job of, and congratulations, is that you took the help and you used it to benefit from. And what I would say to people is that if it's between you not getting help and between you getting help, but the caveat is you may have to be subjected to some religion. As much as I don't want you to be subjected and to be taken advantage of while you're at your lowest, if you will, I do want to see you get the help. And maybe it's just a stepping stone until you can find the outlet that is more appropriate for you. But, in the meantime, please take advantage of the solutions out there that can get you to where you need to be. And just know that you don't need to buy everything that they're selling you, but you can benefit from some of the more positive tools that they can offer you. This we run into when it comes to chaplains in the military. I mean, if you're someone in the military and you're an atheist or you're agnostic, and you don't want to seek assistance from a Christian or a Jewish or a Buddhist chaplain, I would say seek the assistance. It doesn't mean that you're going to become Buddhist or Jewish or Christian. It just means that you're going to get the help. And so, I would say that's what I would have to add. And I hope that strikes you as being okay, Michael.
It does. And I've always said that, I was in a really bad accident once, and I received help, and I didn't ask them what their beliefs were. I just got the help. And that's kind of how I talk to the newer people. Just get the help that you need, get another day clean, and, start living life the way you want to, rather than being, ordered around by a substance. Gentlemen, I'm a longtime fan, longtime listener, and I really appreciate this time today, and thank you.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you for calling.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And folks, that's going to do it for our calls today. However, I do have a couple of other things that I want to talk about. So please don't go yet. Okay. Please don't go yet. First of all, most importantly, we have a drawing that we're going to show. Okay. So we asked for 10 $5 super chats. Excuse me. We didn't quite get that. We got 8 super chats, but we made $71.98. So more than the 50 that we were asking for. I was asked to make a Screaming Sun, a Raptor Jesus, a word salad, and a picture of SR, the Cross Examiner, and Dan, who will all be losing to next week's super chat challenge. And so here we go. I have got Raptor Jesus. He's praying over SR, the Cross Examiner, and Dan while they're eating their word salad under a Screaming Sun. I hope everybody enjoys that. There's a little smudge up here. I cut my finger reaching for a pen, so there's a little drop of blood. Kind of weird, but I think appropriate because it landed right on Raptor Jesus's nose. And you know how Raptor Jesus feels about having blood in and around his mouth.
This is how you summon evil spirits, man. I mean, I don't want to find out the supernatural's real by having my soul torn out of my ass.
So I'm saving all the drawings I do, and we're gonna make shirts or something out of them. I don't know. Maybe I'll sell them. Maybe we can auction these off. We'll have originals. I mean, they're gonna be like $5,000 each or something. I mean, that was pure genius in that artwork. I don't know. But speaking of pure genius, Jamie, thank you so much for joining me, man. I love working with you. You're so great to work with. I always learn something. I took some notes. I'm going to go learn some more based on some of the wonderful inputs that you had and some of the great calls that we took. I don't know. Did you have anything you wanted to add for today?
Well, I wanted to thank our crew. I'd like to thank our wonderful backup host and producer, Richard Gilliver. And I'd also
Let's bring him up. Let's bring Richard on up.
Yeah, and I'd like to make it clear that I am not clever. I am just a very specialized type of stupid.
3 eggs in a row. 3 eggs in a row.
Le trois œufs, yes.
Richard, did you have any commentary for today's show?
Just Tommy's call was so frustrating for me. I do hope he's going to call back next week so I can talk to myself and Scott who are hosting. An explanation for a contingent thing doesn't have to be necessary. I don't know where he's getting this from. If we take if we paraphrase the first premise of the Coulomb cosmological argument and kind of add a little bit to it, all contingent things that we know that begin to exist have a cause, and those causes are all contingent things. So where are you getting this necessary being from to begin with? I just don't understand where that's coming from. It was wrong when he said the early Christians only kind of, I can't remember exactly what it was he said, but he implied that all early Christians believed that things come from a mind. This kind of idealism thing he seems to be on with. That's not true. A lot of earlier Christians were very, very big into Platonism, and they thought there was a realm of necessary things. I talked about this last week on the show. So there was a realm of kind of the perfect circle. Those are necessary things. And I don't know where he's coming up with this idea that we can't have multiple necessary things.
Yeah.
A lot of philosophers do think that things like numbers, things like logic are all necessary things and coexist with each other. So I can't wait for his call next week so we can get into the weeds with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing, go on.
I thought Jamie handled that excellently. And I mean, whatever premises they pile on, let's get down to bare bones. How do you make the leap? How do you make the leap to God? And that's something, no matter how you phrase the contingency argument, that's something that never gets addressed.
Yeah, as I say, premise one, there is a contingent thing. Premise two, that contingent thing is the Christian God. Therefore, logically, it must follow that if I believe that there is a contingent thing, I'm not allowed to do butt stuff. Okay.
Anyway, we're going to end the show with butt stuff. Remember, folks, next week's prompt. What is God's kryptonite? Reply in the comments and tune in at the beginning of next week's episode for the top 3 answers. Thank you, Richard, for coming. Thank you for the crew for making this a great show. Don't forget.
Got to hijack. Sorry, we had one more last-minute super chat, and I will get it in, but you'll have to do it next time. That is Jason Friedman, $9.99. Draw an alien Virgin Mary. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. Not this time, Jason, but I made the note. We're going to get the alien Virgin Mary done next time I'm on. Okay. So anyway, we're sending out love rings and we will be in the Discord after show. Just remember, folks, if you are not a believer, this is your community and we're glad you came. But if you are a believer, we do not hate you.
We're just not convinced.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live, Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.